On the other video, someone mentioned that the Normcore, if I adjusted the spring, if I put in the lighter spring, it would allow more feedback. I haven't tested it with coffee yet, but pretty sure I don't think it's gonna really affect that. There's two springs. So one spring is the initial push, which is the one that I adjusted lighter. So that was already pretty light, and you can tell it's light until you hit coffee, and then you feel the stiffer spring, which is the 25 pound, I think, spring that's calibrated in there. It's supposed to give you 25 pounds of pressure on the coffee, but really, I don't think any of those springs are 100% because it also depends on how deep your coffee bed is and how your depth of how deep this thing can go, how much it's compressed. It doesn't have to be scientifically 100% accurate as long as it's consistent. So if you're dosing with a similar dose, whatever, it's going to be consistent either way. But I mean, you could probably do that same thing with a non-calibrated tamper, non-weight calibrated. I think the important part is the self-leveling. So comparing more in detail with the this cheap one, this is the 51 millimeter size, yeah. But you can also get these in 53 and 58. So, and they're pretty cheap. It's the same idea, except it doesn't have the extra spring that normalizes the weight that you're pressing down. So this one fits on this little guy. So I think this one is a little more stable feeling. So it's stronger spring initially to push down, but it's a nice, straight down. It does wobble. There is a little bit of play. It's not perfect right now. I mean, my portafilter is just kind of, that also moves because it's not locked into anything. But I'd say it feels nice and stable. This thing, the version 4 Normcore, this is the weakest spring, so I think this does it even more, but it just floops around a little bit. But when you're tamping, when I'm actually pressing down, well, my arm looks really pale in this light. When I'm actually tamping down, it does have a little bit of wobble to it, which I noticed in actual use. So I didn't love that because it just doesn't give you a good, confident feeling about it. I don't think anything's going to break or anything, but just my one criticism of that, of the Normcore version 4. I think version 3 felt a little more solid. I didn't notice that as much. Compared to the much more expensive decent tamper. This one doesn't have the spring either. It has a good strength push, the spring isn't too tight that you're fighting it. It's somewhere in between the spring that comes installed on the Normcore is probably a little lighter than that, and then this one's a little harder to push. But still, this one's not that hard to push. But the decent version 3, which is what this one's nicest to push, and when you're pushing it, there's not as much of a wobble. It's a little bit of wobble, but not that much. And I also found by doing this to all three of them, there is a little bit, you can see there's a little bit of wobble, a little bit of play there. So it is theoretically possible, even though it's a self-leveling tamper, it is possible if, let's say you tamp on a lopsided coffee bed, it's possible that this could be off slightly. The other ones are worse in that regard. Let me show you. So this one, I don't know if I can do it with one hand, but this one wobbles a little. This is a tighter spring, so it's harder. I'd say it wobbles a little more than the decent one, which is a lot more expensive tamper. But the Normcore, yeah, I think it's probably, maybe it's less than the really cheap one. But it's hard to judge because it's, so this one, it works. It's staying relatively level, which is good. I think it does actually do better in that test versus this guy, which is really hard to test. But yeah, see, yeah, this one fails at keeping it level under like higher pressure. But in actual use, I don't know if that's going to make a difference, because you'd have to like pile your coffee up on one side and purposely try and, which is going to cause problems if you do that either way. Because one side is going to be more dense and, more compacted than the other, which is why I like using these 3D printed needle tools. You can also just stick needles in cork. They have to be really thin needles, 0.30 millimeters or 0.35 works. I think this is a mixture of both of those. It's really hard to tell by looking at it. But so you'd use that to kind of stir and distribute and level off the coffee. It also helps if you have clumps from static. Break up the clumps, and then you tamp. And then once you start with a relatively even, coffee bed to tamp, that's going to help with your shot flowing better and not channeling as much, or not channeling at all, hopefully. So I mean, they're all good. They all work. It depends on your budget, how nice the feeling, like how important it depends on how important the feel of something is. There's other really expensive tampers out there that supposedly are even nicer than this decent one. Like my friend really likes the Bravo tamper. There's also the Force tamper, which I'm not sure how I feel about that. It kind of has like you push it down, then it kind of has a vibration, which I would think would disrupt the coffee, but I don't know. A lot of people seem to like it, so maybe it doesn't. But it kind of works similar to a torque wrench, where you have a certain amount of force until it clicks and tells you, hey, you've reached 120 foot-pounds of torque, or 30 pounds of pressure in that case. So it's a smart idea. Yeah, for budget, I don't think anyone's gonna have a problem with this or this. Normcore makes good products. Just be aware there's a little bit of a wobble. It bugs me a little because I'm used to this fancy, expensive one. So I'm probably gonna stick with the decent mostly. But the one benefit, the reason why I got this, is because it has a tighter, a 58.5 millimeter base. So it's a little thicker, a little wider, sorry. So you get right to the edge of the basket. This one gets pretty close. I don't usually see like coffee left on the ledge of the basket or anything, but I noticed actually I haven't noticed it with the version 4 Normcore, but I did have the version 3 Normcore with the 58.5, and sometimes it would get stuck in the basket. Like maybe it's when you have coffee grounds on the side of the tamper. It's such a precise fit that it creates a kind of suction, and it gets stuck in there, and you gotta be careful with how you remove it, because you could disrupt your coffee bed with a vacuum effect, basically. I don't know if that's actually happened or if I'm careful enough to avoid that. But it's just a little annoying when you're trying to remove the tamper. You feel it. It's a little strange. Although you know what, the bunch of times I've used this so far, I don't think I've ever noticed it. Maybe it's just better with keeping the edge clean, or there's less static on the new one, version 4, or they accidentally send me the 58 instead of 58.5. I don't know. But actually, here you can kind of tell. So this shakes around just a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. Seems about the same. It's hard to tell, but I remember. Yeah, maybe they sent me the wrong one. I don't know. Yeah, I'll have to get a testing thing, a measuring thing, really measure it. Digital caliper. Yeah, that's what I need. I don't have one of those. Yeah, so I ordered my my tamper from cafoon.ca. I don't know if that's how you say it. But I don't think I notice a difference in the wobble room. So I'm thinking maybe they did send me a 58 instead of a 58.5. I think it's like 58.35 usually. So we got about like a millimeter or less. I don't know. It's hard to judge, but let's see. It seems like it's the same, or maybe it wobbles around more, but I'm trying just to do the bass. Yeah, it's about the same amount of space. That would explain why it hasn't done the thing where it creates the vacuum. I don't think I have the right bass on this thing. The decent might even be tighter. It might even be a more precise fit. So yeah, we'll talk to Kafun about that.